Harrison Meese, and this is Duck, North Carolina, and we are Group Drug Policy. Today, we're going to be talking about drug policy and how over the last many years, it has been far more harmful than helpful. Now, the first thing to understand about drug policy is addiction, and how in the 21st century our understanding of addiction hasn't kept up with science. This is summarized in a simple study done with a rat, a cage, and 2 water bottles. Now, the first water bottle is just a regular water bottle. The second one is laced with heroin or cocaine. Either way, what happens is the rat compulsively drinks the water bottle laced with the cocaine or heroin until the rat dies. Now, in 2010, psychologist Dr. Bruce Alexander looked at this and thought there had to be something wrong with this study. So he built what he affectionately called Rat Park. Rat Park was a much larger cage that included lots of other rats, both male and female rats, balls, spinning wheels, and tubes for them to play in. And also the 2 bottles of water, one laced with cocaine and one regular. A surprising thing happened. The rats not only didn't use the water bottle compulsively until death, they hardly used it at all, proving once and for all that our understanding of addiction is not one's bond to a drug, but an individual's lack of bonds to society, their friends, and means of support.
In 1971, former President Nixon proclaimed America's public enemy #1 is drug abuse. Nixon fought drug abuse on both the supply and demand front and implemented policies that reflect the diseased view of addiction. His administration then initiated Operation Intercept, which pressured Mexico to regulate its marijuana growers. The U.S. government spent hundreds of millions of dollars closing up the border, but Colombia quickly replaced Mexico as a supplier. In 1977, President Carter called for the decriminalization of marijuana, although he was against legalization. His presidency then witnessed an increase in cocaine use. Former President Reagan then got elected into office and made it his mission to get tougher on drugs. Reagan believed that if you eradicate consumers, the producers will follow, and raised the budget to $1.4 million during his first term. In 1955, Clinton introduced a budget that included $13.2 billion for drug policy. $7.8 billion was spent on the supply-sided efforts, while only $5.4 billion was spent on education, prevention, and rehabilitation. With all this spending on the war on drugs, it's unending and resulting in mass incarceration for drug-related crimes, political corruption, and also violence, negatively affecting the lives and human rights of most people.
We'll be looking at the key strategies behind the war on drugs. No drugs equals no problem. Our plan is to demonstrate how this ignores a basic market principle, supply and demand. If we reduce the supply without first reducing the demand, the price goes up. But that doesn't matter. The drug market is not price sensitive because drugs will be bought and consumed no matter what the cost. According to the Drug Policy Alliance, this singular focus on supply reduction has failed to control organized crime, syndicates, and quell drug trade-related violence. So, no matter how many suppliers get caught and shut down, there's always going to be another to replace them.
The Reagan and Nixon Administration Act on the War on Drug Policy has been proven to be a complete shipwreck. The American taxpayers have paid over $1 trillion to stop the war on drugs. More than half of federal prisoners are incarcerated for drug-related crimes in 2010. The Mexican drug cartels make billions of dollars every single year. The Mexican drug cartels will invest in $2,000 into kilos of cocaine in the countries like Peru and Colombia. They then resell the same kilo of cocaine to America for between $30,000 and $50,000 per kilo. According to the Office of National Drug Control, they estimate that $100 billion worth of illegal drugs were sold in the United States in 2013.
Another point of interest in America's drug laws is our policy of harsh minimum sentencing. During a recent U.S. congressional hearing launched as part of an investigation by the House Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security, minimum sentencing policymakers and supporters were questioned, and findings indicated that minimum sentences for drugs did not correlate to a decrease in crime. This has led many to question the validity of minimum sentencing in our already bloated and overpopulated prison system. Despite making up only 5% of the world's population, America makes up for 25% of the world's total incarcerated population. It's clear that our system of minimum sentencing is in need of some sort of reform.
Instead of punishing drug addicts in America, maybe we should begin to do just the opposite. Help them. In the 1980s, Switzerland experienced a public health crisis related to heroin use. HIV rates went through the roof, and street crime became a huge problem. Swiss authorities tried a different strategy called harm reduction. They opened free heroin maintenance centers where addicts would be treated and stabilized. Here, people would be given free heroin of high quality, clean needles, and access to safe injection rooms. They were also given clean showers, beds, and medical supervision. Social workers helped them find housing and get jobs and deal with problems in their lives. The results were a drastic drop in drug-related crime, and 2/3 of the people in the centers got regular jobs because now they could focus on making their lives better instead of financing their addiction. Today, over 70% of all heroin addicts in Switzerland receive treatment. HIV infections have dropped drastically, and deaths from heroin overdoses have dropped by 50%. Drug-related street sex, work, and crime have been reduced enormously. So there are methods that are not only drastically cheaper, but also actually work instead of creating more of these problems.
Our presentation by reviewing how human beings have an innate need to bond and connect with one another. With the current policy, we hurt offenders by taking away benefits and support, putting them in a literal cage and making it more difficult to get a job and return into society. According to this book, in Scott County, Kentucky, a common means of getting rid of one's addiction is by going cold turkey in jail. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.